Good morning, students. Today we shall quickly go through the next prose piece, that is The Blue Bead, written by Nora Burke. Uh, this is a beautiful story with the graphic picture of the life of the country folk residing in the villages. And this blue bead is a story about a girl named Sibia, her family, and their struggle for survival in a hostile environment. If you look at the writer, Nora Book, she is well known in English. She is a well known English novelist and non-fiction writer. Her life was in her early childhood. She spent her life in India. Her father being a forest officer, she spent traveling through the Indian forest, often on elephant back, and that drew inspiration for her in writing her experiences. This is like a travelogue. In this story, she paints a vivid graphic picture, rich in detail, of an exciting jungle adventure, an encounter between Sibia, a 12-year-old girl, and a crocodile. Now the story follows the pattern of third person narration. Okay, the writer herself is speaking the story, and only in a few places Sibia's direct speech has been quoted. And the protagonist of the story, you already came to know, that is Sibia, and the antagonist probably is the crocodile. There is much use of irony in the prose piece, and great many number of imageries have been used. It abounds in visual and auditory, color, and rural imageries. The author has given a pictorial representation of the jungle life with the great attention to the details. The beautiful and impactful descriptions of the village life, the wildlife, and the splendid sights and sound encountered in the journey through the forest remain in our mind. It linger in our minds for long. There is extensive use of symbolism. It conveys the point to be made. The blue bead here, it represents Sibia's happiness because she grew up in poverty. It is said, the pinch of poverty in which she lived. She had nothing but a rag. Okay, and then how she longs for a necklace, and how this blue bird make her happy. So the bluebird is used as a symbol. It represents the richness and luxuries that she would never afford. It's also a symbol and a reminder of her bravery and heroism. We come to know how she saves a Gujar woman from the crocodile. So it is a symbol of her, or reminder of her bravery and heroism. This blue bead also symbolic of how little things can make them happy. So the title, the blue bead, is very apt. Although about this bluebird we come to know only in the last, but it is very apt. So I don't prolong by giving you an introduction to the lesson, but we go through. Each time we go through, I'll explain to you, because it is little lengthy. Okay, little lengthy. So please take page 93 of your treasure trove, chapter lesson 8. Hope you have got the book with you. Okay, so we begin. From deep water came the crocodile. So the first itself, Nora gives the description or introduces about the crocodile. From deep water came the crocodile. So we are in suspense who the protagonist is, whether it is the crocodile or Sibia. because in the beginning part, the I think almost the complete first page is all about the crocodile, first and the second page. Okay. Out of black water curved with whirlpools and into the frill of gold shallows by the stepping stones. So from the deep water the crocodile came, and it looked like black water, maybe because of the color of the crocodile made the water black, curved with whirlpools. Whether the water has that current, it may be because of the movement of the crocodile. There was a kind of fast circling of the waves in the water and into the frill of gold shallows by the stepping stone. So it came near to the stepping stone. Frill of gold shallows. Shallows is something, what you call it, shallow water. Okay, where the in the water bodies, shallow is the place or area in the body of water. And what is whirlpool? Whirlpool is an area of water in a river or stream that moves very fast in a circle. Here the movement of the water may be due to the entry of the crocodile. Timber was being floated down this great Indian river from forest further up. So in the water in this Indian river there used to be timber floated down, because there is close to this Indian river there is a forest, and people used to cut down the timber and put it in the water. And there were sleepers lying stuck around the stones. Sleepers means this kind of piece of timber or the stone that used to be supporting. So these timbers which is cut down from the forest used to be floating in the Indian river, and these sometimes used to get stuck with the stones in the river. The sleepers lying stuck around the stones until someone came to dislodge them, means dislodge or remove. Okay, until somebody helped to remove these from the obstacle of the stone, these sleepers remained in the water, floated in the water, and sent them on their way, or until floods lifted them and jostled them along. Either somebody has to push it out, remove the obstacle, or the flood has to come. Only then these timbers or the sleepers would float freely in the river, maybe to reach to the other side of the river. The crocodile had no need to hide himself. Why he says the crocodile had no need to hide himself? He is already used to that surrounding. He has no fear. He is ferocious himself, and he has no fear of anyone and anything. So he never hid himself. He came to rest in the glassy shallows. What is this glassy shallows, children? Glassy shallows means a glass like a shallow place or area in a body water where it is glass like, very transparent, very clear running water. And balanced the crocodile had no need to hide himself. He came to rest in the glassy shallows among logs, among these timbers or the sleepers, and balanced there on the tiptoe on the rippled sand, with only his raised eyes out of the water and raised nostrils breathing the clean sunny air. So for the onlookers, they would only see the bulged out eyes of the crocodiles and raised nostrils breathing the clean sunny air. You can see the bubbles in the water level because the crocodile is breathing. Okay, so it used to balance itself tiptoe on the rippled sand. Rippled means small wave like, okay, lightly ruffled or covered with the small waves. So they used to rest on the shallow water. Around him, broad, sparkling water travelled between cliffs and grass and forest hills. So the water used to flow without any kind of disturbance. It used to lie still on the shallow water, and the water used to flow travelled between cliffs and grass and forested hills. See the way she has described the beautiful scenery in that bank of Indian river. So the clear running water used to flow through the hills and the cliffs between the grass and the forested hills. A jungle track came out of scrub each side and down to the sun whitened stepping stones on which a little flycatcher was flirting and thrilling along. Now there is somebody more there, not only the crocodile. What is there? A fly catcher was flirting and thrilling along. Maybe the sight of this fly catcher, the bird, has made a movement to this crocodile. Maybe that can be the breakfast for our crocodile. So he has come to the shallow water, seeing the fly catcher flirting. Flirting means flying quickly. Thrilling along. You must have seen the way spinning. The birds used to turning and spinning around. No, so he saw a fly catcher, a type of bird that catches and eats flying insects. Fly catcher is a kind of bird. So this crocodile must have seen the fly catcher, the bird, waiting there to catch the insects. And it is flirting there, flying quickly from one place to another. That must have moved the crocodile. The mugger crocodile. Mugger crocodile means a freshwater crocodile. Okay, that is the Indian crocodiles which is living in the fresh water. Blackish. Now here the writer is giving the description, beautiful description about the crocodile. How does it look? Blackish brown above. So on the top of it we could see the blackish brown above, yellowy white under. So beneath him is the yellowy white. Lay motionless. It is lying motionless like a rock, able to wait forever until food came. Until the food came, until the prey came, he would lie motionless. They could lie down for a long period of time. This antediluvian saurian. Antediluvian means old-fashioned. Saurian is a reptile. This old-fashioned reptile, this prehistoric juggernaut. What is juggernaut now? Juggernaut means something that is extremely large and powerful and cannot be stopped. It is something very large and very ferocious, very powerful, juggernaut. So this reptile, this old-fashioned reptile, this prehistoric reptile is very ferocious and formidable. Formidable means very powerful and very strong. A vast force in the water. When it moves, it creates a kind of powerful force in the water, propelled by the unimaginable and irresistible power of the huge tail. Even the little movement of the tail can create a whirlpool in the water. Irresistible power of the huge tail. It has lots of power in the tail. Lay lapped by ripples. It is lying, taking rest in the ripples. A throb in his throat. And what is there? A kind of a steady beat is there in his throat. It shows that he has seen his prey and he is waiting for his prey. His mouth running almost the whole length of his head. How the writer has described. Have you seen the crocodile? Okay, the length of the head and the length of its mouth is similar. That's what she says. Running almost the whole length of his head, was closed and fixed in that evil bony smile. And he was smiling, but it was closed. Until a prey comes, it will remain closed. Where the yellow underside came up to it was tinged with green. So already the color underneath of the crocodile is yellow, and when it is lying on the green, it looked yellow and green in the water. From the day, perhaps 100 years ago, when the sun had hatched him in a sand bank, and he had broken his shell and got his head out and looked around, ready to snap at anything before he was even fully hatched. From that day, when he had at once made for the water, ready to fend for himself, immediately he had lived by his brainless craft and ferocity. Very long sentence, okay? Now, what is it telling? From the day, perhaps 100 years ago. So, the writer gives him the age of what? 100 years. I do not know whether the crocodiles live for 100 years. I have heard its lifespan is 70 to 90, 95, maybe. So according to the writer, he may be 100 years old. But from before he was hatched, when the sand had hatched him in a sandbank, you know how the hatching of the crocodile takes place? The female lays the egg in a hole, okay, and I think it takes almost 100 days, between maybe 80 to 90 days for hatching a egg. So it's a long period of time. And then the writer says he had broken his shell and got his head out and looked around, ready to snap at anything before he was fully hatched. Even before he was fully hatched, fully out from the shell of the egg, he started fending himself. He was ready to snap at anything before he was fully hatched. From that day, when he had at once made for the water, ready to fend for himself, and from the time he hatched himself, he was ready to fend himself. No mother or father to feed him. He himself would feed. He had lived by his brainless craft and ferocity. The writer beautifully says he was guided by the what will we say, instinct, a kind of instinct. Animals are known for they live by their instinct, isn't it? They don't use their brains like human beings. They don't have reasons as such. So from the day of his birth to this day, he had been fending himself. According to his instinct, he acted. He ate what he wanted. Okay, so the writer says he had lived by his brainless craft, means he was guided by the instinct and ferocity. Escaping the birds of prey and the great carnivorous fishes that eat baby crocodiles, he had prospered. So he also had to save himself from the birds that used to make them prey. When they are small, maybe some kind of big birds used to attack them. So he escaped himself from the birds of prey and great carnivorous. There were also big fishes who are the carnivorous fishes. They would eat the small baby crocodiles. So he saved from himself and had prospered. He grew so big, catching all the food he needed and storing it till putrid in holes in the bank. So he used to preserve the food. He used to keep it in the bank of the river, store it till it get rotten. Putrid means decayed in the holes. Tepid water to live. Tepid water means lukewarm water to live in, and plenty of rotted food grew him to his great length. So this warm water and the rotten food made him grow to this great length. Now nothing could pierce the inch-thick armored hide. Now he has grown into 100 years, and you can imagine how strong he is. He is an old crocodile. So the writer says now nothing could pierce the inch-thick armored hide. Now nobody can attack him. He is for sure very strong. Inch-thick here means, children, the inch-thick armored hide refers to the thick, hard covering of the crocodile that protects him. Over the years, the crocodile had become so strong and so ferocious that nothing could pierce his inch-thick armored hide. So this thick skin is protecting the crocodile. Not even rifle bullets, even the bullets cannot pierce this inch-thick hide of the crocodile. The skin of the crocodile is so thick that even the rifle bullets cannot pierce it, which would bounce off. The rifle, the bullets will bounce off, it will not penetrate. Only the eyes and the soft underarms offered a place. So only the vulnerable place in a crocodile is the eye and the underarms, soft underarms. He lived well in the river, sunning himself sometimes with other crocodiles, muggers, as well as long-snouted fish-eating gharials. So there in that Indian river, there are two kinds of crocodiles. One is mugger crocodiles, the other one is long snouted fish eating gharials. So they used to sometimes warm themselves on the bank of the river. They used to have sun bath, sunning himself sometimes along with the other crocodiles. On warm rocks and sun banks, where the sun dried the clay on them white, quite white, and where they could plop off into the water in a moment if alarmed. If somebody comes to attack them, they would pop themselves, jump themselves into the river water and save themselves. Otherwise, they used to enjoy the sun bath on the bank of the river along with other crocodiles. The big crocodile fed mostly on fish. So now it is talking about what is the foodstuff of the crocodile. You know, it is carnivorous, isn't it? So here it is said the big crocodile fed mostly on fish, but also on deer and monkeys that came to drink, perhaps a duck or two. But sometimes here at the ford means the shallow part of the river, he fed on a pie dog full of parasite or a skeleton cow. So here the crocodile used to get, pie dog means the wild dogs, okay, honorless stray dogs, full of parasites means who are not cared, no, so they will have their worms on it, or the skeleton cow. And sometimes he went down to the burning ghats and found the half burnt bodies of Indian cast into the stream. So he also used to get the burned bodies. You know, the cremation usually takes place on the bank of the river, and the bodies, half burned bodies, used to be floating in the river. So these crocodiles used to feed on these half burnt bodies of the Indians. Beside him in the shoals means sandbank, as he lay waiting, glimmered a blue gem. Now, beside him, now comes some kind of what we'll say, a point to the title of the story. But there was a beside him in the shoals, in the sandbank, as he lay waiting, glimmered, shined a blue gem, a blue pearl, a blue bead. It was not a gem, though it was sand-worn glass that had been rolling about in the river for a long time. It was a sand-worn glass piece, okay, and rolling in the water. It had been, over the time, it looked like a pearl. By chance, it was perforated, means pierced, right through the neck of a bottle, perhaps a bluebird. So over the time, this glass piece, the glass-worn, sand-worn glass had become like a blue bead. In the shrill, noisy village above the ford means where the stream, where a stream is shallow. In the shrill, noisy village above the ford, above the stream, out of a mud house, the same color as the ground, came a little girl, a thin, starveling child. Starveling child means starved, okay, who has starved, who lived without much of food, malnourished, dressed in an earth-colored rag. What was her dress? A rag, earth-colored rag. She had torn the rag in two to make skirt and sari. So she had torn one of the rag into two pieces, and one she used as a skirt and sari. And the color of the girl was also looking like a mud color. See how the same color as the ground came a little girl. The color of the girl was also muddy color, and she wore a muddy colored, earth colored rag. Very poignant way of penury has been described. The life of the poor life of the village in which Sibia was brought up. Sibia was eating the last of her meal, chapati, wrapped round and smear of green chili, and rancid butter means rotten butter. And she divided this also to make it seem more, and bit it, showing straight white teeth. See the irony of life, isn't it? The poverty stricken. That is the very important theme of the story. It is depicted beautifully through the life of Sibia. She lives in a mud house in a noisy village, and she is introduced as a thin, starveling child dressed in an earth colored rag. And then about the chapatis, make her chapati seem more, she used to divide it. She stands amazed before the see how the child, she wanted to eat more, and there is only one chapati, so she used to make it into small pieces to look it more in number. With her ebony hair, what is this ebony hair? Ebony means very dark and black. Her black hair and great eyes and her skin of oiled brown cream. She was a happy, immature child woman. See the word used, child woman, about 12 years old. 12 years in your age, okay? 12 years means it's still the childhood, playing, studying, enjoying life. But here she is like a woman working along with the other women of the villages. That is why the writer gives her the adjective child woman, about 12 years old, barefoot, of course, and often goosey cold on a winter morning. Even in the extreme cold, she is barefoot and born to toil. She is born to toil, she is born to work, and only work, nothing even to feed upon. So underline the description of Sibia, okay? Even about the crocodile, these both are very important, okay? The descriptions about the crocodile and the Sibia you should underline and keep. In all her life she had never owned anything but a rag. So what was the only property that she had her own was the rag, nothing else. She had never owned even one anna. Anna means for 1 rupees, maybe the 1/16, one part of the 16th portion of the rupee, not a pice, even not a pie even, to buy or say a handful of blown glass beads from that stall in the bazaar where they were piled like stars, or one of the thin glass bangles that the man kept on a stick, and you could choose which color you would have. So in the village, and you know how these vendors used to go around selling the bangles and the necklace, or the bead chains and all. So this girl used to be so fascinated, and she wanted so much to have at least a bangle or a necklace for herself. But the only possession that she had was a rag that she made into two pieces for the use of a skirt and a sari. So that poverty stricken was the family of Sibia. She knew what finery was. She had been with her parents and brothers all through the jungle to the little town at the railhead where there was this bazaar, and she had walked through all the milling people and the dogs and monkeys full of fleas, the idling, gossiping, bargaining humanity, spitting beetle juice, heard the bell of a sacred bull clonking as he lumped along through the dust and hubbub. So she knew what was the finery. Okay, finery means the clothes, jewels, etc., that were expensive and beautiful. She knew, she has seen. When she, along with her parents and brothers, through the jungle to the little town at the railhead. Railhead means a point on a railroad at which traffic may originate and terminate. Okay, so they used to sometimes go to the nearby village market, to this bazaar, And she had walked through all the milling people, all the walked through all the milling people and the dogs and monkeys full of fleas. The idling, gossiping, bargaining humanity has seen the people bargaining and gossiping, spitting beetle juice. That is the village. If you have been to your own village, you must have seen people eating, chewing the beetle, and then they used to spit the red juice of it. That is a kind of practice being done even today by our village folk. Heard the bell of a sacred bull clonking as he lumped along through the dust and hubbub. In this noisy crowd, there used to be a sacred bull. That is also another site in India, isn't it? The sacred bull with the bell hanging on its neck used to be moving around. So she has seen all these in the nearby bazaar. She had paused amazed before the sweet meat stall to gaze at the brilliant honey confections abuzz with the dust and flies. They smelled wonderful above the smells of drains and humanity and cheap cigarettes. At home, she sometimes tasted wild honey or crunched the syrup out of a stalk of sugar cane, but these sweets were green and magenta. Now, the poor girl, whenever she used to go to this bazaar, she used to see the sweetmeat stall where she used to see the honey confection, means the sweet food items with the dust and flies also. Although it used to be with all dirt and all kinds of flies, it used to smell so wonderful. And the smells of drains and humanity and a cheap cigarette, amidst all this smell of the perspiration of the human men, the crowd, and the drainage and the cheap cigarettes, she used to simply enjoy the smell of these confections, the sweet items. At home, she has tasted wild honey, crushed the syrup out of a stalk of sugar cane, but these sweets were green and magenta. But she wanted something prepared in the bazaar. Then there was the cloth stall, stacked with great rolls of new cotton cloth, stamped at the edge with the maker's sign of a tiger's head, and smelling so wonderful of its dressing, straight front the mills, but that Sibia could have stood by it all day. So she has also seen the cloth stalls, and she has seen great rolls of new cotton cloth stamped at the edge with the maker's sign. Okay, there used to be the brand name, and smelling so wonderful, and the new clothes used to smell so wonderful straight front the mills, that Sibia could have stood by it all day, and she would have loved to stand there and stare at these cloth shops and the sweet meat stalls. But there were other wonders to see: satin sewn with the real silver thread, tin trays from Brigham, and a sari which had got chips of looking glass embroidered into the border. She joined the crowd round a Kashmiri travelling merchant on his way to the bungalows. He was showing down coloured silks that poured like cream, and he had got a little locked chest with the turquoises and opals in it. Best of all, a box which, when you pressed it, a bell tinkled and a yellow woolen chicken jumped out. So these are very common to us, isn't it? The embroidered clothes with the glass pieces and other. Today you have lots of worked saris and all, isn't it? Working, it has become very common. So she used to stare at. She used to feel fascinated by seeing this beautiful garments, the silk being sold by the people, and the toys, the different types of toys that used to excite her emotions, and she used to simply watch and enjoy these things. So here I stop. It has become already a lengthy one. We'll continue the next day. So for now, read it at least twice or thrice. Underline the rhetorical devices used. Pick up the imageries used. Okay. So read once or twice until I give you the next video. Okay. All the best.